Hard Reuben. Oh my God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Force Fed Cafe, episode number 18. Thanks for checking out the podcast. If you've listened before, you might recall that I try to find a balance between talking to new artists, emerging artists, and some of what I consider to be classics. For me, this is part of a personal musical journey, not to fall into a rut of thinking only the music I listened to back in the day was any good. Because in truth, I believe that if we don't expand and grow and adapt, we stagnate and we become the very thing we once rebelled against. I've been following my guest today for a number of months on Instagram as she plays her bass and introduces her followers to oldies and new tunes through one of her many musical projects. This young person plays bass like a demon, a groove-laden, solid backbone for her musical compatriots to follow. She's quickly become one of the bass players to watch, in my view, and I was quite thrilled to be talking to her. Today's guest is Becky Baldwin. But now the bad news. Some weeks back, her band, Hands Off Gretal, took a stand as both Becky and Hands Off Gretal songstress Lauren Tate began to call audience members and social media followers on their bullshit. It started with audience members, grown-ass men feeling like they could take liberties with the women both on the stage and off, groping them, making comments, and generally just acting like Neanderthals. I wish it stopped there. But both Becky and Lauren, when they called these guys on their shit, started to get attacked online by a bunch of you trolls out there that would rather pretend you're the only one that matters. Frankly, this shit got my fire up. Listen, guys, it's time to grow up. It's not okay to act like women of any age and any persuasion exist just for us to be lewd and grope them. Slut-shaming and misogyny have no place in this modern world. And it has no place in heavy metal and hard rock. I don't care what you think. If you're one of those guys, fuck you. And don't mistake this as an attack on genuine mutual sexual attraction. It's not an attack on desire. It's not an attack on romance. It's an attack on assholes. If you are one of them, do better. If you're not one of them, call these fuckers out on their bullshit. Look, I've done my share of stupid shit that I can't take back. But we all have the chance to do better. Now the good news. Here is my chat with Becky. What an honor. How are you, Becky?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. We'll just get right into it if that works for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks very much for joining me here today. This is a new podcast. I'm only 15 episodes in, and I'm not a huge social media guy. I don't really like social media, but I did fire up a Instagram account and, Facebook account and all that sort of stuff to coincide with the podcast. And one of the first people I came across was one of your videos playing bass to, I don't remember what it was. I really have no idea, but it was immediately, I was like, oh, this is somebody I need to follow because this is cool. And then I sort of following you started to learn a little bit about your sort of trajectory of what kind of person, what kind of music, what kind of things you're doing. It pretty quickly became apparent to me that you are one incredibly busy person.
Yes, that's right.
And I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I just hadn't really got around to asking, and then things happened. But in the last week, and I want to talk mostly about you, but I want to really talk. I also want to talk about this kind of explosion of, I don't know what it is, misogyny. This it sort of came across my plate like I saw it when you posted a picture of yourself giving the middle finger, which, by the way, is a fantastic photo and pretty much one of the most heavy metal things I've seen in a while. But I do want to talk a little bit about that too, because that is a lingering poison that exists, and I think we all have a responsibility to help snuff that out. And I'm always very upfront about it. I'm significantly older than you. I've been around a while, and I'm guilty of a lot of the things that are part of this poison. When I was an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, I wasn't the smartest kid. But I
Yeah,
think
I don't
it's
think anyone is really like everyone makes a lot of mistakes when they're.
but I think it's incumbent on all of us, particularly those of us men who still see this stuff happening, for us to step forward and be like, "Hey, dummy, that's not okay anymore." It was never
Yeah,
okay, but it's
yeah,
really not okay.
yeah. I mean that was kind of, I guess, why the posts seem to be aimed more at older men, not just because we're saying the old men are gigs are creeps, but is you expect that they would know better. They would they'd be able to represent someone. That they should know better, and the young people would expect to just say things that are inappropriate and do things that are wrong. Because I did the same thing when I was a teenager. I look back and see the things I posted, think about things I've done, and just think, oh, an idiot. But young people now are really cool. They are so aware of each other's feelings and things like personal space. All the young people we meet are pretty much like that, and most of the older fans are like that. It's just a select few that kind of haven't got the memo about how to act around female musicians, and in the probably 30 or 40 years they've been going to gigs, that hasn't sunk in. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
nobody's kicked them off at any point. Everyone's just kind of went home thinking, what do I do about this? I'm not sure.
I think part of this, and I refer to it as poison, and I really think of it that way because I know that there have been I've seen some interviews with some other female artists who say things like, I don't go in the pit anymore. Like, I don't stage dive. I don't do these things that I want to do and should be able to do, because you never know when some asshole's gonna purposely grab you, like grab you by the ass or wherever the hell he feels like it, and you don't need that shit. I never think about that. If I'm diving in the pit, I'm not worried about somebody grabbing me, right? It's just unbelievably stupid. And the problem seems to be that these very people probably wouldn't be doing this in their daily lives. It's this mentality that they feel like they can get away with it in that live gig environment, and that is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think alcohol spurs them on a little bit, makes them a bit less, I don't know, aware possibly, and the fact that they can disappear so easily within a crowd, they know they're not going to get caught. And I'm sure most people think of it. Most girls think of it. They're like, oh, if I crowd surfed and I got grabbed, I would stop the person. I would shout at them. I would like kick him in the face or something. But the reality is once it's happened to you a couple of times, you realize it's so difficult to actually find the person, for one, figure out which one it was, and secondly, to be able to stand up to them, because you just feel embarrassed that it's happened to you and you don't want to make a fuss. There's something about it that you don't want to tell other people what's happened to you, because you feel like you're being an attention seeker, even though it's a real thing and it's happened to you. I don't know, there's something about it that makes it almost like you're ashamed that it happened, and so you don't do anything about it. Therefore, you just don't go to the front of the gig. Instead, you don't crowd surf. You're just, okay, I'll just stay in a safe space with my friends. And it's just a really sad thing to be scared out of doing it.
It is a sad thing. I'm gonna go back quite a number of years. For me, it really there really started to be a change in attitude, probably in my head a little bit. But there are a number of things that sort of happened in the late '80s and early '90s that I think started to veer. I'm gonna say heavy metal music, but I include punk and hardcore and hard rock, and there's a variety of musics that I sort of will include in that the music stopped being driven so much by ridiculous testosterone and started being driven by the love of the music and, to a degree, the love of each other. We started to feel like a community of people. Riffs between punk and hardcore and metal all started to heal a little bit, because for a while there in the 80s you were one or the other, not all the in-betweens.
Yeah.
And a big moment in my youth was when Slayer, on their Decade of Decadence release, there's a point in there where Tom Araya is saying, hey, you guys, we're all, obviously this is not a direct quote, but this is basically what I heard, we are all family, we're in this together, so if you see somebody go down, you pick them up. And I mention this because I feel like that is so relevant in this situation, because you're being put in a position, and when I say you, I mean women in music who are being violated. You're in a position where, you, as you said, you're feeling a little embarrassed. You're feeling, you don't know what, you don't want to make a fuss, but at the same time, it's guys. like me and younger guys, we're the ones who should be making a fuss. We're the ones who should be stepping up and going, "Hey, buddy, you did that. That's not okay. Get your ass out of here." It has to be that community that steps forward to support you, and not this sort of vehement hate that the trolls just sort of spew at you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't really police anything from. I mean, from the security's point of view. I mean, most of these gigs that we're playing and a lot of people go to are small gigs where there isn't security in the front row, and the band themselves are kind of policing the audience because we're the only people who can actually see. We're a bit above everyone, like looking down, and we can see what's happening. So we're always thinking, like, should we be keeping an eye out for what's going on? Because we've had times where after a gig, we've had girls approach us saying, this man touched me and this guy wouldn't leave me alone. And we have to spend our time playing, but also trying to keep an eye out and look after people and say, hey, can this guy back off? So, but yeah, we need people already on the floor who can actually deal with it, because all we can say is, oh, we think something happened. Can you go move somewhere out? And it doesn't make any sense for random people in the gig to, it interrupts the flow. We can't just try and provide security at our own gigs while we're doing it. We need like people to be looking out for each other on the floor while they're doing it. And, it's just little things like friends just telling their friends when it's not funny, when they're doing something to a girl who's, or anyone else who's drunk or just having a good time, and, just taking the piss in one way or another.
Yeah. And I think that's a key message. It's not funny. That's not okay. It can be a really simple message, but we all have to provide that. I wanted to start with that really and kind of get through it because it's a big deal. And I want to say thank you for bringing that forward and making the statements that you made on social media, because I think it's important for everybody to wake up to this stuff, because we should all be able to go to shows and enjoy the music and enjoy the band. And who cares if, I think about, for years, people have worn what they want to wear, whether it's because this is the outfit and how I want to be portrayed, or this is the outfit I'm comfortable in, or it doesn't matter. You're getting the whole package. You're getting the band and the art and the music, and we should all just be enjoying that and not looking to fuck it up for other people.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Thank you for bringing that forward. Let's talk a little bit about you, because you are a busy lady.
Yes.
How many bands are you currently in? It looks like 4, but maybe just 3?
I'm in 3 bands, but I kind of dip for other bands, and for a while I've been playing in other bands. So yeah, it might look quite confusing that I've recorded on a lot of things and end up playing with other bands that I'm not actually a member of. So yeah, I keep myself busy.
Well, one of the things I talk about a lot in this show is what it takes for people to make a living in music.
Yes.
To be able to, what do people have to do to be able to do their art, right? There are some people that go off and they have a job. They might fix cars. They might work in pharmaceuticals. They might be painters or construction workers or whatever. And then they go on tour and they do their thing. And it seems by all accounts that you are somehow able to pull it all together and just make a living doing music.
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to monetize just so many different things that I do that makes my income, like loads of different little income streams that I couldn't rely on their own. But over the years, I've kind of pieced them together. So I run a music school. So I teach bass there, and I kind of do a bit of the admin. So that's kind of my main income and has been for the last 8 years, I guess. And as I said about depping for other bands, the original bands I play in really don't make much money at all. But if I have some days free, then I'll hire myself out to some bands that are paying. Things like that. And you might have seen on my website that I now have a web store, which I'm amazed by how well that has gone. I didn't think many people would buy anything. I thought, maybe like 10, 15 orders of some, repurposed bass strings and stuff. But it's really kicked off. Like, it is starting to become more, getting more earnings from this than I do from teaching. So just selling little things like jewelry, necklaces made out of bass strings, and I've just kind of done some signed photos because people kept asking me for signed photos and for free, and I was like, no, I can't bother to do this. And so I just put them on my website, and now if they ask for them, then they can just buy them. So yeah, that's been pretty good. And just little things like helping book publishers and stuff, proofreading their music books and things like this. Really random work. And with my endorsements of Daddario, sometimes I can do some work with them, talking about their strings and things. So yeah, it's very varied kind of work.
So when did you start playing bass?
I started when I was 13. I got my first bass for my birthday. So yeah, and so that was very long. That's like half of my life now.
So what was
bass longer than I've haven't been playing bass.
So what was your first bass?
It's called a Chester. It's a really, I don't know, I've never seen this brand of bass anywhere else. It's just kind of it looks like a Fender P bass, but it's just like a cheap brand version of it.
Do you still have that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's here in my teaching room. I keep thinking of selling it, but I've been told that I shouldn't. But I don't see the point in it just hanging around here. I keep lending it to students and just being like, just take this home and play this for a while and then buy your own bass at some point. But it just keeps coming back to me.
So you started playing when you were 13 and you ended up, so did you just play by ear, or did you take music lessons up until, while you were in school?
I took music lessons, bass lessons from a couple of different tutors. They were all, unfortunately, they were all guitarists first, and just did guitar lessons, and then they were like, oh yeah, I can also teach bass. So I learned from them, and I mean, I think I learned really good stuff from them because they were guitarists. There were certain things that helped me more because they were usually playing guitar while I was playing bass, so it kind of allowed me to get used to playing with a guitarist and jamming with bands. Like the hand shapes that he'd make, I knew what they were, even if I couldn't really see the root note. I was just like, oh, okay, I know that hand shape means that this is an A chord and stuff like that. Whereas I don't know, when I then went to university to study bass, that was a bit of a shock to the system because there was a lot of technique that was very specific to bass that I didn't know anything about, like slap and that kind of stuff. I had no idea, so I was really just like, oh dear, I don't really know what I'm doing here. So it was a bit difficult at first, but I kind of adapted and got through it.
I've watched a few of your tutorial videos, and I quite enjoy them. I'm not a musician. When I was younger, I sang in bands and things like that, but I just didn't. It wasn't the art. It wasn't calling me so much. It was just a thing that I was doing for fun. And I actually realized when I was having another interview recently, when I was asked the question, I have played bass, or I have played and I've played a little guitar pretty much my entire adult life. But the sad truth of it is I'm still no better than I was when I first picked it up at 14 years old. I can learn, I learn a minute of this song or 30 seconds of that song, or I know hundreds of parts of songs, but I really I've never been able to put all those parts together and just play songs. And it's sort of an interesting pickle I put myself in by just always having it and picking it up and enjoying it. But seeing your tutorials, I'm like, oh, she makes it actually look like I can play bass.
Tried it? Did you piece it all together?
Yeah. So I was quite enjoying it. And I was watching your I saw your post the other, I don't know how long ago it was now, but you were playing some Jimi Hendrix. And I was like, I forgot how much I liked Jimi Hendrix. and you really reminded me, because as a kid I wasn't really a guitar kind of guy. I didn't really go for the guitar heroes and stuff. I was like a Steve Harris guy and a Lemmy guy, and I loved the bass players. And so I never really got fully into Hendrix because it was so focused on Hendrix that you kind of it was lost what an amazing bass player he was, right?
Yes.
So and I've got that from watching your Instagram feed. Just like it's really enjoyable for me to see what you're playing, and that leads me to sort of my next thought. Music has evolved to the point where Well, we're not. I don't think we're quite there. We're not quite to the point where we can say Becky Baldwin, bass player. Everybody always feels like they have to say Becky Baldwin, woman bass player, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's. We need to get past that, but we're not past that. If we're going to be talking about women musicians, there are a lot of amazing women shredders.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you is because there are not a lot of there are, but they're not kind of at your level. There are not a lot of amazing, I'm going to say it, shredder bass players. You can play everything, you do it. And I'm really excited about that because being a bit of a bass fan, I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, thank you.
And so,
well, I don't know. I think there are a lot out there. Yeah, I feel like most of them are working more. Like, I feel like less of the really good bass players have time for social media. I think they're just
busy.
So in demand that they're very busy. And I mean, not that because I definitely am busy as well sometimes, but yeah, but I put a bit of a focus in my life for some reason on trying to do these Instagram versions.
Hey gang, you feeling sluggish, trying to find some energy for the gym, or wishing you could shed a few pounds and are struggling to find just the thing to help you? Then check out High on Life Superfoods. High on Life is the leading provider of hemp-based, nutrient-rich supplements intended to instill optimal health to those who wish to perform at the next level. Listen, I'm not just talking here. I use High on Life products myself. LIT is an amazing hemp-based, vegan, raw food blend that helps reset your body's nutrient balance and kickstarts your metabolism to get you going through the day. Use it as a shake, in a smoothie, or try my favorite. Mix it up with some cold coconut milk and cocoa and voila, LIT ice cream. Do your body a favor, everyone. Go to highonlifesuperfoods.com and enter the code FORCEFED10 on checkout to receive 10% off your order. But don't just listen to me. High on Life is used by some of your favorite bands: Suffocation, Trivium, Dark Angel, Testament, Body Count, and many more. These guys know what it means to need to keep up their metal pace. Try it and you will see the difference. I have. highonlifesuperfoods.com. Get it.
But I think there are a lot of girls out there doing it. But yeah, I haven't come across a lot of them on social media.
Yeah, I'd like to see more. That's all I'm saying. I'd just like to see more bass play. So let's talk about some of your bands. What was you're currently in Hands Off Gretal.
Yes.
You have played for Onslaught. Is that correct? You've done some depping for them.
Oh, no, not exactly. So their guitarist. So I got on my website. There's a quote from their ex-guitarist Ian about some depping that I did for his other band.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So there's kind of a link there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I checked out. I don't know the pronunciation here. Dorja. Yeah. I quite liked that. I've basically leading up to this. I've been listening to your catalog that I could find, and it's been quite enjoyable. I think probably Hands Off Gretal and Fury would be my two favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Fury is a little bit more into that sort of flavor of metal that I listen to.
Yes.
But I also like Hands Off Gretal. Lauren's songs really reminded me a lot of that sort of early '90s angst. Not quite grunge, not quite punk, but some kind of blend in the middle, I think. And that's sort of, I really enjoyed that era of music too. So are you still active? It looks like you're playing soon with Fury. I'm looking at your website now. It looks like you're playing soon with Fury.
Yes. We're a bit quiet at the moment with Fury because we're working on the next album. So we've been kind of trying to not gig every single weekend because it just makes everything take so much longer with recording. But we've just announced a gig that we have at Bloodstock Festival. You might have heard of it. It's
Absolutely.
Like a massive, yeah. It's like the biggest like proper metal festival. I say this in a really kind of obnoxious way, like proper metal, but like it's kind of no bullshit metal festival in the UK. We're playing, but we're kind of playing away from the main festival. It's kind of the VIP bar which is kind of cool because it's where all the other bands like are going to be hanging out. So Anthrax are probably going to be there backstage in the bar while we're like playing. We'll do some Anthrax covers and stuff. So we're just entertaining guests there.
That's nice. So
And
that's
then,
going to be some great exposure for you.
yeah. I mean, they might not be there, but I don't know, in our dreams, like, then we're having a party with Anthrax. So yeah, so we're doing that gig, and we're doing a little warm-up gig for that the week before in Manchester, where we also play a proper Fury set with all our originals. But yeah, it's a bit quieter at the moment for that band. When we get our new album out, probably early next year, then a big tour will be coming.
So you've just come off a bunch of dates with Hands Off Gretal.
Yes.
Are you taking a bit of a break from that?
I guess that was meant to be the plan, but it just hasn't really happened. We've got festivals every weekend, all of summer, and then we've been offered some support gigs for some other bands, a band called Ferocious Dog, and just other little things. And and then we go to Germany, do some mainland European dates in October. So yeah, it's still pretty much solidly booked until November.
Wow.
And at some point we have to record the next thing. So I don't know when that's going to happen.
And you'll have to fit all of that in.
Yeah.
So Dorja, is that active still?
Yes. Yeah. We've just announced a tour recently, and we just released our album properly. We did our debut album funded with Pledge Music last year when everything went swimmingly, and we funded the album. Now it's out for general release. So we're doing a summer tour in the UK to promote that. Oh, and a few gigs in Netherlands and Germany too. Yeah, so got some gigs with them coming up. But yeah, I mean, I guess you heard maybe about Pledge Music.
Yeah.
So last summer it was fine, and like so many bands I've worked with have had successful campaigns with that website. And then Hands Off Gretel earlier this year had an absolute I'm trying to find a non-swear word for going with this. It all went wrong basically. Yeah, and we lost all our money from our 20 grand Pledge Music campaign.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the music industry for you.
Is Triaxis still active?
No, so that band, we did our last gig in 2017, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the last member who had actually been on an album. Like, one by one, we had this year where 4 of our members left, and I was just like, oh, okay.
I guess it's just me.
It's just me and like all these new people, and I was like, oh god, I can't write an album. I can try and make another Triaxis album, just me.
Yeah.
I've got too many other things going on. I had to call it quits.
Let's talk a little bit about your basses, because I'm a fan of basses. Is your primary bass a Rickenbacker? There's a lot of pictures of you with Rickies.
Yes, yeah, I do as much as I can with that. The white Rickenbacker. That's a 1977 4001, made in 1977. Yeah.
Cool. And
you've had some modifications on it.
Yeah, it looks rather custom.
Yeah. The scratch plate is made by Alper, who he does lots of really cool designs. It's kind of like handmade, carved out of like metal.
Oh yeah.
And and a thumb rest because it's really handy.
How many basses do you currently own?
I counted 7 the other day, which seems a bit excessive, but
including that first one.
Yeah, I've actually sold any.
Oh, the white Ricky's the white Ricky's your favorite?
Yes, yeah. I like to use that as much as possible, but sometimes I need to use my 5-string, so that's the Fender that I use as well.
Do you still play that original one, or you said you give that to your students to take home and stuff? Do you have a
I do.
Do you have a favorite low-cost bass?
Yes, the Dan Electro Longhorn bass. So I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of a brown, funny-looking, short-scale little bass.
Oh, I don't think I have. I'm going to look for that.
There's maybe a couple of videos doing it, playing with it recently. But yeah, it doesn't come out very much because it is just such a weird little bass. It doesn't really look right in the kind of punk and metal scene, but I really like the sound of it, and it's very lightweight. It's very useful for like if you're flying with it because it's smaller. But yeah.
Oh, so if you're doing some pop-in dates somewhere, it's a pretty good one to take with you. Yeah,
because a lot of the flights, they have a limit for how big your instrument can be, and a bass is too big. But that Dan Electro is pretty much the same length as a guitar, so I can get that in hand luggage rather than having to put it in the hold and get it like someone steamrollering over it.
let's talk a bit about your who were the bass players that you were modeling yourself after when you were first starting? Who were your big influences?
So my main influence growing up, I think, would be Cliff Burton from Metallica. I loved all of his bass lines, and bought books with like Metallica stuff, and yeah, I love that stuff. More recently, I listened to more Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. I just think he's such a cool guy, and he seems really nice. And yeah, I really love those kind of blues inspired bass lines. And he kind of created heavy metal, so like that's the coolest thing I can imagine. Like what a guy. I mean, when I first started playing, I was really into Motorhead. I never really got that kind of style of playing with the pick and kind of the chord based stuff. I try and incorporate it in a bit more now, but I don't know, playing with a pick doesn't really sit right with me. So yeah, I mean, I would say mostly Cliff Burton, Geezer Butler, probably also Steve Harris, and also Chris Squire from Yes.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I was I saw Judas Priest just a few weeks back, and I remember I kind of went on this Judas Priest kick here at home, and my partner, who is not a metal fan at all, but now wanders around the house singing Judas Priest to herself. We went and saw, and I just remember I've seen Priest a couple of times, and I've never seen them like I did this last time, where Ian Hill's bass really was pounding, like it was just really forward. And I thought to myself, he's an underrated bass player, that guy.
Yes. Yeah, I've been watching like loads of live videos of them, and he's always seems to be like in the back behind some fog.
Yeah.
And the guitarist is there at the front, like, look at me. And Rob Halford's there, just being a legend. And the drummer's up on this massive riser, and Ian's just laying it down, just pretty chilled. And considering he's one of the longest standing members, I guess,
the only original member.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. The only original member. He doesn't. Yeah, he's not the one that. It's sad that he isn't the one that people remember. But I guess it's not what he cares about. He's just kind of doing the job.
Yeah, and he's doing it great. And I remember walking away from that going, I've never heard them with the bass so forward, but not overpowering, right. Like just doing the job that he's doing. Right, he's playing with the drummer and making the song move. And I just thought that was fantastic. Yeah. You were talking. You've got an album to record. You've got a couple albums to record. It sounds like.
Yeah, probably the Fury album. Very soon. Well, we're halfway through at the moment. This is the kind of Fury are doing it in the very like DIY way that's kind of possible with modern technology. We recorded the drums in a studio. Now it's just a case of us all doing our parts at home, just getting the layers built up right. But the Hands Off Gretal, I think we can do an EP now. That will probably be in a studio, so it's just trying to find the time to do that.
Let me ask you, how long do you think you can? You are busy. How long do you think you can juggle a bunch of bands?
Well, probably like -2 years. I mean, I've come to this kind of problem in my life quite a few times over the last 6 years of playing with bands that are all touring and stuff. So that it does come to a reality where you have to prioritize, and I've had to do that. I mean, that's why you can see that Hands Off Gretal are very busy, Fury are not. I mean, we kind of have to plan the year around who's going to do releases when. So if I know Hands Off Gretal, they're doing, we did our album in March, we were kind of touring spring and summer, so it made sense that Fury would not release anything for a bit longer. So yeah, it's a case of balancing it and being clear with your bandmates about how it's going to work, and what parts of the year you're going to dedicate to each band. And Fury, I mean, I guess you heard our singer Julian. He's a great songwriter, amazing voice. If you put any musicians around him, as long as they're solid musicians in their own right, nobody's going to be upset, like, oh no, I went to a Fury gig and I didn't see Becky. Like, they're not going to get upset because they've got Julian. I've been able to balance those things around. And with Dorja, it's been, even though, it's a very difficult band to run because we've got members all over the world. Because we do have that disadvantage, we have to be very concise with what we tour. We're just doing like 3 weeks in the in Europe in the summer, and that's it for touring this year. So yeah, so everything just has to be very tidy. You have to have your schedule very clear set. But yeah, I guess at some point, it's just, you have to see how bands grow and see what's best for you, and what you enjoy the most and what is actually feasibly working for you, kind of as a career. It becomes like less fun, I guess, and more like, oh, this is serious life stuff.
Yeah. Things changed a lot in the last 30 years. I remember when I was a young guy and I was playing in bands, and we were never going to be anything except a bar band playing some covers and maybe trying a couple originals here and there. But I remember back in that day, you were only allowed to be in that band. Right?
Yeah.
This is your
Yeah.
band. You're not allowed to be in another band because otherwise you're disloyal, and that attitude really kind of continued for a long time until I think the 90s, when all those bands who were trying to make it in the 80s collapsed under the weight of the collapsing record industry. And slowly all those folks have sort of crawled their way back to going, oh, so I have to make a living, but I can continue to do this with these guys. And everybody sort of found a way to eke out a way to make a living and continue to make the music that they always wanted to make. And it's kind of interesting now that we've come to a point where there are lots of people in music, similar to yourself, who are, multi-banding. Like finding a way to make it all work. And I always think immediately of Gene Hoglan, or even now, these are two drummers, but Gene Hoglan or Art Cruz, who they have their own bands, but they also work in other bands. Like Gene has never given up on Dark Angel, but he's been in Testament, he's been in Death, he's played for Anthrax, he's played he's played for pretty much everybody at some point. And it's really nice to see that there's room for that, because then you get a really nice, I feel, flavor of somebody's real talent. So if Gene Hoglan's playing for Testament, he's not going to turn Testament into the Gene Hoglan band, but he's going to add his piece, and it's going to give a really nice dynamic to that band. If he's playing for Death Clock or Galacticon, it's the same thing. You know what you're getting with him, but he gets to exercise his different skills. And so I think that's what I'm seeing with you, Becky, is that you've got all this raw talent, and you're playing in these bands that are different from each other, and it's giving you the freedom to sort of step out and explore your own abilities a little bit, and your own feel. So that's pretty neat to see.
Yeah. I mean, the bands that I've been playing in, they're all very varied in genre, and a lot of people ask me, like, oh, what do you actually like then? It's like, as if you could either be a punk or a metalhead. Like, you can't be both. But I don't know. I really think that all these styles like blur into each other, and yeah, they all help each other. And as you say with Gene Hoglan, like, when you're kind of a supporting instrumentalist, you're a rhythm instrumentalist. There's only so much that you change the band. You can, a good bass player and a good drummer will be able to slot in, and they will have their own flair, but they'll be able to just recreate it as it was given to them. With Hands Off Gretal, I didn't actually record on the latest album that we're promoting, because I joined just after they recorded it. Actually, the drummer recorded the bass parts. So I've just been trying to just recreate what he does. And I think I've done it okay. Like, people generally don't notice that it's any different live. So yeah, it's good. But I think bands these days, I think because it's harder for bands to make a living out of it, that they find themselves having to venture into different types of work. And they'll have their kind of, maybe they'll have a kind of a hobby project, but then they'll have the thing that brings in the money. And there isn't that pressure anymore as much. I mean, back in the day when it was probably a better music scene, there was probably more exciting bands going on and more money in it. There was also probably managers trying to cream off that money and enforce a lot more pressure on bands to only do one thing. And it was a lot stricter, I think. Whereas now it's nice that bands can, artists can move between bands and just do whatever sounds good to them at the time, really.
And I kind of, people talk about the collapse of the record industry, and it did happen, and there were a lot of bands that were impacted negatively by that. But the 90s was kind of like a decade of rebuild, and people were rediscovering how they can do it. And now there's such that do-it-yourself structure exists where people have to do it on their own. That doesn't mean there won't be a payoff at some point. That doesn't mean that you might not find the success that enables you to just focus on that one thing. But it has really given the freedom, I think, of bands to truly express themselves through their songs and truly express themselves through their sound, rather than being pushed into a mold that was set by somebody before them, right? Which really was what was happening in the 80s.
True, yeah.
So it's fantastic. Becky, I thank you very much for your time. This has been a fun chat for me. I appreciate it. I wish you nothing but the best. As I've said already, you're incredibly talented, and it's a real pleasure to watch you play bass.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. This has been nice.
You have a great summer with all your shows and all your touring, and I look forward to hearing more music from you.
Okay, I'll keep them coming.
All right. Thank you.
Speak to you.
All
Bye.
Right, bye-bye. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, check out Becky online at her website, beckybaldwinbass.com. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook at Becky Baldwin Bass, on Twitter at BeckyB_bass, and check out her band's Hands Off Gretal at handsoffgretal.co.uk, furyofficial.bigcartel.com, and Dorja at dorjaband.com. Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast or any other episode of Force Fed Cafe, please check me out on iTunes or Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please head to iTunes and leave a review. Follow me on Instagram at HardRubenOfficial and on Twitter at ForceFedCafe. Thanks for listening. See you next time.